12 of these 24 co-ops have failed. The condition of the current co-ops is our inability to get information out of your organizations.
Predictions are close to 750,000 have already lost their health insurance with little to no notice. The process, what happens when a co-op closes? Do they continue to draw money from the federal loan?
So when the co-op closes, it's a decision between CMS and the Department of Insurance. When that wind down starts, that doesn't mean the co-op is closed. So we started wind down processes in the September, October timeframe, but consumers were able to continue coverage until the end of that year.
So they continue drawing federal loan money?
So the loan money had already been awarded. There's no new dollars that go out the door. All of that loan money.
So even when they close, loan money continues going out the door?
So no, when they close their doors, there's no additional loan money, because that was already awarded to them. There's obligations of money that they need, they're on a payment cycle, if you will, but that money had already been awarded.
I didn't say there was not a problem. I said that not all co-ops have failed, and we have one in Maryland that is performing reasonably well, and that's the extent of my knowledge and interest is the Maryland co-op.
Okay. But to Dr. Cohen, thank you for being here. Major insurers, as we've been aware in the reports in the media, have sustained significant losses on their exchange plans and have been pessimistic about the profitability of their plans. In 2015 and 2016, the records show that United Health expects to lose $1 billion on exchange plans. The company's CEO has even stated that entering the exchange was, and I quote, for us a bad decision. United might quite quit exchanges altogether in 2017. Aetna has lost money on plans sold through the exchanges, and its CEO said, and I quote, "We continue to have serious concerns about sustainability of the public exchanges. Humana's losses might drive it from the exchanges. Most major insurers seem unable to make a profit on the exchange." If that's the case, if major insurers can't make it on exchanges, why should we be optimistic that co-ops will?
Well, we're very confident about the fact that the marketplace grew over the last open enrollment period with 12.7 million consumers in the marketplace now. And if you look at a Kaiser, a Centene, Molina, others, they are seeing strength in the marketplace and looking to expand. And so
I guess the time will tell on that, but we're talking of significant organizations that have seen that it has been a bad investment. So hopefully it will be a turnaround. The administration has requested more than $1.8 billion in emergency funds to combat Zika. $828 million would go to the CDC, $200 million would go to NIH and FDA. A separate committee investigation into this administration's Obamacare spending has revealed that during the Ebola crisis, HHS propped up Obamacare by taking money from CDC and NIH and giving it to CMS. Over $14 million from CDC and over $75 million from NIH, if the records are correct. By HHS's accounting, over $1 billion in Obamacare funding has come from the systematic rating of funds from other programs utilizing the Secretary's transfer authority and non-recurring expense fund. Based on that track record, Dr. Cohen, how can we be confident that any Zika funds would be spent on their intended purpose and not instead used to prop up co-ops or other pieces of Obamacare?
So I can't speak to the Zika funding and how that will be spent, but what I can say about the funding for the marketplaces is that now that we are on stable footing with 12 million and more consumers, we are able to charge user fees to the issuers through that, and that is what sustains the marketplace in terms of its viability and to cover its operational costs. Why the user fee will cover the marketplace operations. In addition, obviously, the secretary has at her discretion to move money within a department to cover whether it's Zika or Ebola or marketplace, whatever important action of the moment is needed across the country.
That's concerning. So
Co-ops to use loans from the federal government that used to be prioritized loans to count those as capital on their balance sheet for purpose of meeting their risk-based capital requirements.
That's correct.
And that doesn't scare the hell out of you?
That's allowed by under law, and it is something that
What
we
law?
do.
Okay, and you can ask somebody behind you if you want to. Is there a specific section of the law you want to cite on that one?
I'd be happy to have one of the lawyers follow up with,
All right.
with our
Do
authority.
you agree with me that it undermines the whole purpose of having risk-based capital in the first place by allowing them to count a government loan as capital? I've heard from some of the co-ops that the payments, the reinsurance payments have slowed up. Are you withholding reinsurance payments from any of the co-ops, whether they are ongoing, they are winding down, or they are closed, in order to offset the loss from the loans?
So each of those are, again, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, does that mean that
depending
in
on,
some cases the answer is yes?
So most of the time, the decision has not yet been made, so I think it's too early to say.
Okay, then let's talk about when you say most of the times the decision has not been made. Let's talk
They
about
have
the
not-
times.
They have not been made. They have not been made in the wind-downs of the
in
co-ops.
any of them.
No,
So
that
it's-
is an ongoing process.
It's your testimony here today that you are not withholding any of those payments from any of the winding down co-ops.
So at this time, the Department of Justice runs this process, and I'm happy to have them come and answer questions about how the process would work, but right now we are not.
So this all started, it's been in existence for 2 years, right? January 2014 is when the first co-op started operation, is that right?
That's correct.
And you had 100 and some, over 100 applicants, but you approved 24?
That's right.
And of the 24, 12 have already failed.
12 are close, yes.
12 of them, the taxpayers, over $1 billion. Of the 12 that are left, you can't tell me which ones you visited or haven't visited, what the enrollment projections are, and whether they're meeting their enrollment projections, and whether they're profitable or not. That's the kind of stuff we kind of want to know in this hearing.
Understood, and I'd be happy to follow up with those
I mean, there's only
specific
12.
details.
It's one thing if it was 100. There's 12 still operating. You've lost half of them, and I'm asking you about those 12 still in operations. Who's making any money, right? Who's meeting their enrollment projections, and who'd you visit?
I
You
can
can't tell
follow
me
up.
out of those 12.
I don't have that information in front of me on the top of my head, but I would want to, be very happy to follow up and
Well,
get
we
to
need that information, and that's kind of frankly the information you should have had on the top of your head and in front of you when you come to, it's only 12. But don't you also run the risk that it puts the enrollees at some kind of disadvantage? They're now maybe part of a co-op that's in financial trouble, and based on history and experience and the fact that half of them have already failed, and many of these, I assume, of these other 12 are in big trouble, you don't think it's important for the enrollees, the actual fellow citizens, to know what's going on?
So we share that information with the two entities that are most important to making the corrections, the co-ops themselves, and the State Departments of Insurance, which carry the voice of the...
we're the Congress of the United States. We're an entity that's kind of important to know about this as well.
And we want you to know that we are doing our job, which is why we had your staff, and I know they spend hours with those documents, so that you know that we are doing our job here and are being pretty tough on the co-ops.
But our job is to stand up and represent the citizens of the country who want to know that information, and frankly, from a market standpoint and an evaluation standpoint, need that information.
And that's why you can have access to those documents if you need more time to review them.
It's my understanding that it was developed after the recommendation of the HHS-IG.
We certainly went beyond the terms of the loan agreement to do further oversight, and yes, appreciated the OIG work saying that to do enhanced oversight, which we have. I don't think anyone can fault us for in terms of how many folks are on corrective action plans or enhanced oversight. We're visiting these folks, we're calling them, we're pretty hard on them, frankly.
The Inspector General of HHS, he found that all but one of the co-ops had lost money in 2014. CMS was aware of this, that almost all of the co-ops incurred losses in 2014. If you were aware of that, and some were already shutting down, why did you continue to award the taxpayer dollars in loans.
So you needed to.
I mean, if you know you're on a sinking ship, well, you got to. When I first entered the Georgia legislature, one of the things they told us: when you're in the hole, stop digging. We're in the hole here. Why are we still digging?
Oh.
Totality, though, 12 of the 23 co-ops have already closed. 12 of the 23. Anybody in business would pull the plug on that immediately. But you continue it. Why is that? 12 out of 23 closing, it would appear to me that you've got to say, hey, wait a minute, something's going on here. This isn't working. And we're talking about taxpayers' dollars, again, that we in Congress, we're responsible for this. We're the ones who have to answer for this. So I'm asking you, if you've got 12 out of 23 that are closing, why are we continuing this?
And
The $1.2 billion in loans that
That's
were
what-
awarded to the 12 closed co-ops.
Yep, that's the process we're working through right now.
What about it? Where's the $1.2 billion?
Well, some of that obviously went to pay for actual medical care for the consumers that were enrolled in
Are we
those
going to get it
co-ops.
back?
We're working to get every penny we can.
Are we going to get the $1.2 billion back?
We're going to use every tool at our disposal.
Are we, yes or no? Are we going to?
Obviously, some of that money was spent on actual medical care for consumers, so
We're not going to get it back, are we?
we're going to try to get every dollar we.
And do you think we'll get half of it back? Do you think we'll get a quarter of it back? Do you have
can't
any
say.
idea how much of it we'll get back?
I can't say at this point.
12 out of 23.
Understood. That's right.
He suggested that consumers in states with co-ops have already saved more money through lower premiums than the total cost of the entire co-op program itself. He also noted that these savings are passed along to the federal government, the taxpayers, in the form of lower subsidy costs.
Are you taking any specific actions to prepare for the possible shutdown of any of the currently operating co-ops?
I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I think the work that we're doing on the oversight work is that contingency planning.
Does it bother you that I think it's at least 4, maybe as many as 7 of the co-ops that have already gone out of business or winding down never went on a cap to begin with?
Again, if we identify something we think is correctable, reversible, addressable, we put them on a cap. Others, we recognize
Have you ever
that
corrected,
wasn't-
reversed, or fixed anything under any of the caps?
So these are things that are structural to the program, as I was mentioning, some of the
I understand
things
what they are. I'm
whether-
asking if you fixed them.
So they don't fix overnight.